Hello Internet, and welcome to my live reaction for Choujin X, Chapter 24. When we last left our heroes, the fight between Azuma and Tokyo reached its conclusion as Azuma was seemingly just completely pummeling Tokyo. Tokyo was raising himself over and over again, and it seemed like he had run out of steam. And then he unleashed some new, delightfully creepy form, like eyeless, 3 hands wielding these swords that looked like kanji. And in that form, Osma stood no chance. He got cut down and fell through the water into the dam, realizing that the pedestal that Tokyo had held him on had, in Ozma's mind, crumbled. I'm not quite sure Ozma's right there, but that he's no longer this hero figure to Tokyo. Tokyo saves him anyway, screaming all the while, and Ozma lives for now. Or not for now, but he lived. He survived the fight. Everyone's okay beyond all the people Azuma killed, who may or may not be raised. But yeah, that's where we left off, with not really much of a resolution, just sort of Azuma realizing the changing shape of his dynamic with Tokyo. So with that said, let's dive right on into Chapter 24, Exceeds. And we open at Yamato Mori, as Azuma is sitting there, much the way Tokyo did a while back. I think after his fight with Nari, if I'm not mistaken, is when we first sort of saw him here. And we come to a flashback with, I believe, that Sato, the asshole second in command of Yamato Mori, leaning over Azuma, doing all right there? And Azuma's lying on the ground. Huh? Oh. And Sato looks back towards the dam. Looks like you fell from the dam over there. Even a Choujin wouldn't stand a chance after a fall like that. I suppose he saved you then. And we see, Azuma looks over and sees a leg just sticking out of the ground. And we see the Tokyo planted face first in the ground as Sato comments, he doesn't seem to have fared nearly as well. And then we come back to the present and we see a bunch of people running around the base. Azuma watches and someone calls to him, Higashi. No, this might be another flashback, or we're moved a little bit forward into the present, maybe. But he's sitting in the temple room with Sandek. It seems that you're lacking something as a Choujin. And Azuma, which is the sort of thing that the narration sort of implied over the past several chapters now, but that Azuma's only dealing with now. I'm lacking? Do you know what you're missing? And Azuma answers, the ability to hold myself in check. That's right. Self-control. And we see on the previous page, on the scroll behind Sandek, are the words, self-control is strength. And I'm curious if it said the same thing when Tokyo and Ellie were in the room a while back, or if he's changing the scroll based on the people in the room with him? I don't know. On its own, I don't think it means anything, but if I'm right about Yamato Mori being, the less than ideal body that I think it might be, that might be building some sort of, manipulation kind of thing going on with Sandek. Anyway, that's right, self-control. Your inclination toward emotional outbursts has greatly influenced your Choujin powers. Many Choujin are plagued by powers that are beyond their capacities. And we see he's still pondering these words as he heads to the infirmary where I'm assuming Tokyo is. I would like to take you under my wing so that you can learn the ways of self-control. And he enters the infirmary, and we get another flashback to when the two were in middle school, it looks like, doing judo or something. As Tokyo just screams as he hits the ground, and the referee calls, Azuma wins. You hear that squeal? Typical. Just what you'd expect. No way anyone in our middle school could win against him. And Tokyo picks himself up as Azuma, carrying on the sort of themes of the flashbacks during his fight with Tokyo, asks, were you actually trying? And Tokyo doesn't hear him. Huh? What'd you say? Nothing. I don't think it's just outbursts in the way that Sandek puts it. It's also, on some level, the lack of outbursts. The fact that he takes all these emotions and stuffs them deep, deep, deep inside himself and never lets them out until they inevitably have to come out, and he kills half a dozen people. So yeah, I'm not sure. Wait, the fact that I think that Sandek's kind of wrong there, that paired with the scroll, paired with my already existent suspicions about Sandek, all sort of is building to, I'm just increasingly mistrusting of the man. But anyway, that day in Flashback Land, Azuma's walking, and he notes Tokyo's sister, whose name I've forgotten. Let me see if the wiki will give me her name real fast. Not immediately. Yes, Kineko. He finds Kineko. Oh, you're Tokyo's sister. Kineko notes him, Azuma, hey, you're doing the middle school soccer league and the prefectural basketball tourney? Holy cow. I wish my little brother could do that. Then I'd actually have something to be proud of for once. That's a hell of a thing to say about a middle schooler. God damn. But Azuma pushes back. In regards to the whole morass of emotions he's been feeling for his entire life. I think Tokyo could actually accomplish a lot more. If he actually tried, I'm sure he could. Kineko takes that, Tokyo actually applying himself. And we see Tokyo at the same time, going to a game parlor. But Kineko tells him, I don't think he has a reason to, really. Knowing my brother, and Azuma, I'm not sure how Azuma's really taking that. This idea that, if Tokyo had a reason, then he would apply himself. Maybe this ends up tying into their whole, hero routine from the first chapter. I don't know. But then we see Tokyo, he's still playing not Street Fighter at the arcade, and Azuma thinks, right, of course. Unbelievable. And we see it's Simon and Maiko and Ellie, who have all come back to life, sitting around Tokyo's bedside, where he's just unconscious. And Simon comments, first we have to fight mercenaries, then a cloth Choujin, hot on their heels. And Kurohara somehow managed to survive on his own. If he could do that, he should have been contributing from the start. One slip up and we could have died. And Ellie sort of takes that, which is all interesting. That line paired with the flashback we just got out of, the whole thing with Azuma and Kineko. The idea that, Tokyo just doesn't have he could be a great help. He just doesn't have a reason to. I don't know. Which also might tie into the whole thing I pointed out a while ago about the narration. Some people just aren't cut out to be keepers. That was suspiciously on top of Tokyo. There's a whole lot that I feel is just sort of brewing around what Isha is trying to get at with Tokyo. And I'm curious how it's all going to shake up. But Ellie tells him, Tokyo's nothing to scoff at. He's always minding those around him. But it was probably easier for him to brawl one-on-one. And we see Azuma watches this, not really approaching. As, I don't know, maybe it reminds me of the scene in Kingdom Hearts in the first one, when Maleficent specifically shows Riku the bit of Sora being so happy with Donald, Goofy, and the Leon gang, and look, he has friends, he's already forgotten about you. That's kind of what this scene feels like. I still don't know what's going to happen with Azuma also. I don't know. But Simon gets on to her. You make it sound like we were holding him back. Yep. What was that? And Maiko tries to stop him. Now. But Ellie just goes on. Even I was as good as useless. So yeah. But Azuma leaves after that, and he's walking the city. We hear the caw of the crow. And it's another gorgeous shot here. My man can draw. As we just see, Azuma walking alone, all the birds flying above him. I feel there's some symbolism there. The fact that the birds kind of symbolize Tokyo as that sort of his power, and they all seem to be heading left as Azuma heads right. This sort of they're divided by that large expanse of sky, and they're heading in opposite directions, perhaps never to meet again. I might be really, really overanalyzing this, depending on where exactly Azuma ends up going, and where Tokyo ends up going for that matter. But I don't know, remains to be seen. But then he sees something that shocks him. Or he's just sort of surprised to realize that he's already walked to the ocean, I think. Because he thinks, the ocean? And he just jumps off the thing in anime, the water thing in anime. That he jumps down and sees a little flag blowing in the wind. Oh. And we see this flashback. It's a similar flashback we saw from Tokyo on completely different circumstances. The whole good guy, bad guy, are these guys the bad guys thing in his conversation with Ricardo back at Hip Hip Hooray. But they're on the little monkey bar dome with their capes. The wind feels awesome. I feel like I could fly for real. Which, he ends up being able to, of course. Okay, on my count, the Tokyo chickens out. Oh, no, wait, I'm too scared. Oh, come on. And then Azuma tells him, still in the past, okay, I'm going first, so follow my lead. Which, of course, is the opposite of what happened in the real world. And Tokyo, the little, whatever the flag was, it ends up coming loose of the pole and flies away. And Azuma looks over as he watches it, and he sees the hyena. The one from what he found on his way to the fight with Ume, that wanted to know where the sea was, lying dead. And still with the birds above it. The birds alive, free, Tokyo, Azuma, the hyena, that sort of connection they had, dead on the shore. I feel like there's all these symbols that Ishida is just throwing down. And I'm really curious where it's all going to shape up. Because there's a lot of symbolism here. And he goes over to look at it, and he sees, it's clearly dead. He sees the flies, already sort of eating at it. And what might be a vulture, doesn't really look like a vulture, it's kind of almost a flamingo, but black, comes over to it and starts to peck at it. We see tears its eyes out. But Tokyo tells it, stop! And he grabs the pole from the flag earlier and just throws it at, whacks the birds. Not whacking the birds, waving at the birds, trying to get the birds away. Stop! 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 Which just feels, it all feels like the symbolism here is there. I really need to dig into it and work out what exactly Ishida is getting at here. It feels like despite I think I get it now. I think I do. I'm gonna make a theory here. My theory is that despite that he's doing the same thing he's always done. He's a little bit more open about it. He can at least be open about it with himself. But it's the same sort of feelings of frustration and self-hatred that motivated his fight with Tokyo earlier. It's just now a lot more metaphorical than him actually fighting Tokyo. It's the birds representing Tokyo's Choujin form attacking the hyena, which even though his Choujin form ended up not really being a beast, it was a cloth, he still had that ability to speak with hyenas, which is an I'm still kind of curious what the connection there is. If he was following the lion-vulture metaphor, if he was a lion Choujin, I could see that, speaking to all mammals or something. But he's a cloth Choujin in the end, so that's still kind of weird. But the connection still works. He's, what he's angry at is not the birds eating the hyena, it's Tokyo surpassing him. And this is all a symbol for that in his head. So the bird's gone. Anyway, back to the story. The birds are gone, and he's standing over the hyena, and he reaches for it, and he drops to his knees. Among the Choujin, we just see him holding the corpse of the hyena and crying as the birds are all around him, or in the distance now. Among the Choujin, it is said that once in every generation, a single Choujin is born with the power to annihilate an entire world. Okay. That's a random thing. Is that going to be tied in with the Queen stuff? Curious. And we see Noh Mask, who's still around, or who's maybe found Azuma? Curiously, such a being has appeared in every era. The War Choujin Queen, harbinger of a divided nation. And in days gone by, Bill Morth, the deathless emperor, and Sora Siraha, the blessed beast and hero. Should they be virtuous, they shall serve as a shield of deliverance for the people. But should they be wicked, they shall serve as a blade that will bring forth calamity. So, Isha's also just dropping all these little random names that don't really mean much. It's a nice flavor text. The idea that this world is so long, is so, has this history to it. My one question, though, is that Queen's War, who seems to be the most recent of these all-powerful Choujins, that said that, Queen's War was the first war where Choujin were a major power. Why weren't Choujin major powers before them? I don't know. Maybe that's something we'll get at a little later in the story. I don't know. Anyway, And in this trifling prefecture of Yamato, such a being was set to emerge. And we see a wall of air conditioning, of like fans and something else I don't recognize. And then the plaza, where Azuma first tapped into his Choujin powers. A being the Choujin world regards with awe and envy. A being they refer to as. And we see a thing that's the rooftop of the school. Choujin X. This is the story of X, and those swept up in his tail. Okay. And then we end the chapter with Tokyo waking up and just thinking, Azuma, what should I do? To be continued. That's also in flashback lines. So I'm not sure what I'm not going to really address the flashback lines there, because I don't know how that would work. We'll have to wait till next chapter to know what exactly the fact that that's in like a flashback border is meant to represent. But still, that little ending narration feels very much like a kind of end of the beginning. Like, this is a prologue. It literally ends with the title, Trojan X. This is the story of X and those swept up in his tail. But it does seem, though, if I'm reading these last few pages right, that Azuma is the Trojan X. You know, the fact that as like the last thing we see as it's build, or the last thing that we see over the narration as the narrator is building up to Trojan X is the plaza where Azuma was reborn as a Choujin. So it seems like it's Azuma. I don't know. Like, it might still be Tokyo. It's definitely one of them. And maybe the story will end up... And, like, the fact that Noh Mask is approaching Azuma is very ominous. Maybe he can sense that Azuma is this Trojan X figure. I just don't know. And if he does, he wants on his side. I don't know. I guess we should probably leave the who is Trojan X aside for now. The ramifications of Noh Mask approaching Azuma is the sort of thing we'll have to wait till next chapter to see. But once again, I just love this chapter. Trojan X is so fucking good. You know, this really does feel like Sui Ishida at like the top of his game. It once again feels like the release of the limitations of weekly publishing has just allowed him to do whatever the fuck he wants, and what he wants is so good. There's just an artistry to it all. The way it's all sort of framed together, the symbolism is all so on point. It's good. Like, the whole scene on the beach is, I'm not sure it's my favorite scene in Choujin X to date, but it's definitely up there. Like, the way it's just sort of... The way Azuma's feelings for the hyena tie into his feelings for himself and the birds in Tokyo, and the way all of these images are all kind of blurring together. It's some strong fucking work from Sui Ishida. Once again, like, the series is just top-notch. You know. Like, I think you could argue, in its premise, it's a little bit too similar to Ghoul for some people. I can understand that, but once you really get into it, once you really see that execution... This is a man at the top of his game, and it's one of those moments, it's one of those things, it's like when I was reading Arthur Dragon in Fire Force, where I'm just honored to be along for the ride. Like, and this is a kind of, like, slow chapter. This is what Sui Ishida is doing on a slow chapter, just sort of letting us stew in Azuma's increasingly fucked, like, sense of self. You know? I mean, I don't know. I also want to talk about the self-control line again, because, like, I think it's very much, you can almost, like, flip a coin. Is Azuma too controlled, or does he just have no control? And I think he's sort of constantly fluctuating there. Like, I think he does suffer, I still think it's not quite fair to say he's lacking self-control, almost like, I think it is fairer to say that he has too much self-control, that he has no healthy outlet for all of these feelings. He can't deal with them unless he's, you know, fighting Tokyo to the death, or taking a pole to a bunch of flamingos, or whatever those birds are supposed to be. It's not self-control he's lacking. It's a healthy outlet. And I'm curious how, if that's just if my opinions there is just an example of a differing opinion between me and the author, or if it's something Ishida is building towards, that, like, Sandek is wrong. And again, if Sandek is, as I think, wrong on a lot of things, both morally and sort of philosophically, that might be something we're building towards, that Sandek is giving him this bad advice, that maybe will end up pushing him towards the Noh Mask, if that last little scene of Azuma is anything to go by. I don't know. But God, there's just so much good shit here. Like, this series is really top-notch. And then we have Tokyo wakes up, still thinking of Azuma, because of course he is. I don't really know what that's going to lead into, but I know I can't wait to find out. Again, the perennial problem with Trojan X, I just don't know when it's coming back, ever. And I need more. This series is so good. But anyway, I'm going to leave this video off here. Hope you'll enjoy the chapter and the video itself. If you did, feel free to drop me a like or subscribe, or, do whatever makes you happy, And as always, your life is your own, okay? Bye!